Beverly, could you discuss how we might incorporate active listening into our work?
It seems to me that listening is probably the most important skill anyone who works in our profession can have, and maybe the most underutilized skill as well. Listening is really about three things. It's about, first of all, being able to pay attention while people are talking. Now that's hard for us because a lot of our work involves forms and getting forms filled out and all the rest of that. But sometimes it's better to pay attention, at least initially, before you start to move into the form. What does that mean? That means eye contact, leaning forward, nodding your head, your facial expressions. All of those things kind of make people feel listened to. And the second part of listening gets a little bit harder then, and that's the ability to hear the message, to hear what it is that people are saying beneath their words. We kind of talk in two ways. We talk verbally, then we talk non-verbally. So I've got to pay attention to the tone of voice, the pauses, the inflections. Those give me some indicators of what people mean by the words they use. And then the third thing I've got to be able to do, gets really harder then, is to be able to respond in a way that lets people know that I heard them and understood. One of the most common things that people say about, sometimes say about staff who work in human services is they were rude. And I think that rudeness does not have to do with what we said, but it was not listening to people. For example, I come in, I'm very angry about something that's happened, a form you didn't complete, or I didn't get my child care on time, or something like that. One of the easiest things you can do is to say to the other person, you sound really upset right now. What that does is reduces that anger, reduces that hostility right off the bat, so that people can then hear the information that you're giving them. Information really does not reduce hostility, for example. If I'm angry about some form you didn't complete and you say, the policy says we have 30 days to do that, then what you've done is, without meaning to, is escalated that anger that you heard. But if you can say, takes just a couple of seconds, you sound very angry, you sound really upset right now, let them vent, let them get it out of their system, then it's often easy to move into giving people information that they need.
They say silence is golden. Can you explain how this might help us in our work?
Well, active listening is really not about silence so much. It is active. Sometimes silence simply means I sit there quietly while you talk so I can say what I plan to say anyway. So it's, when you're using silence, what you're really doing is paying attention to the nonverbal stuff you're hearing from people. The tone of voice again, the pauses, the inflections, because what you're really trying to listen for is the meaning of their words. For example, let's suppose you're asking me how I feel about going to an activity, and I say, well, it's a good idea. Well, the words say one thing, it's a good idea. But if you're listening, if you're silent at the point where you hear that and you're listening, you hear something else. You hear doubt, uncertain, and so that you can respond to the nonverbal stuff that you hear. That's where the real element of listening is. It's not just hearing the words people say. It's hearing the meaning underneath what they say. Now, why is that important? Well, if people don't feel you're listening to them, then they in turn won't listen to you. So it's really the basic element of building a relationship with somebody. We tend to think that building a relationship involves telling something about myself, okay? Self-disclosure. Self-disclosure can be good for strengthening relationships. Listening is really the best way to build relationships, because here's what it says to people. You care enough about me to pay attention to what I say. Okay. Before you talk to me, you're willing to listen to what matters to me, what's important to me, how I feel about what's going on with me.